Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome back to Big Bud Farm. We are having a big silage sell-off today, and when I say big, I mean 4 bunkers worth 8 million litres of silage, all about to be sold. This is a huge undertaking that we're about to attempt here, because I want to try and sell it all in one single go. Now, the long-time viewers of the series will remember back in episode 20 was the last time we did a silage sell-off, and we sold just this single bunker on its own, and we sold the whole thing in one go. It took me hours to do. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to do 4, but I'm going to try and do it all in one go. So this is the setup that I've got here for my conveyor belts. These yellow belts, these are all leased belts. All the red ones are ones that we own. So as you can see, a little bit of slow down there as it judders around, all this stuff set up here. I've got these belts here to draw through this side wall and deposit onto this belt here. And then we've got another belt here with more belts set up to load onto that and continue all the way along here to this bent belt here, which will then unload onto this. This will then unload directly into that. I just need to reposition this one to get everything rolling. And then up here, to try and keep things going, we have these belts all lined up along here. And the plan is that these are going to take from, this back bunker into this bunker, which will then unload toward, around here, which will then get picked up by this belt, which will then deposit close enough to get picked up by those belts and transfer everything across bit by bit. So what I'm going to need to do to make sure everything is set up ready is open the help window and go to unload here for each of these belts in turn. There we go. And belt number 4 along here. Now I have no idea if this is actually going to work or not. I'm hoping it is, otherwise I've kind of set up a lot of stuff for no real purpose. But I know that the belt system running down the side will work. The picking up from these far bunkers all the way through like this, that's the bit I'm not sure about. And we will be using, as you can see, the JCB with a silage blade to kind of help move stuff where we need to. So everything's kind of set up. It is about 6:15 almost. We are ready to start. So let's see what our current price is just as well before we get going. It's 269 and falling. This is not good. Why is it the silage price always starts to go down whenever I start to do silage? Well, there we go. We are underway. You can see we're unloading. You're going to see silage being taken, as you can see, all the way along here. These belts aren't moving yet because there's no space here for them, but this is what I'm hoping we'll be able to use the leveler for, to create the space that we need. Just want to check that all of these belts are positioned correctly. This one is perhaps a little bit off center. There we go. This was an issue that I found happened a lot in episode 20, was that these belts kept moving for no apparent reason. I've tried to set them up where they're a little bit more secure. And this one here isn't unloading. Why isn't this one unloading? Do we have too many belts? Is that the problem? No, that was just not quite in the right position. There we go. So that one's moving. Make sure we haven't broken anything over here. See, now this belt has stopped moving. So I just need to reposition this one slightly. Why won't this one unload? should unload, but it isn't. Let's try and lower that front piece. Maybe that's what's causing the issue. Why isn't this belt moving? I don't understand why this one won't unload. It should. Why won't that one unload? I'm not entirely sure what is stopping it from unloading here. It's lined up, it's in the right position. All the other belts are working. Why isn't this one? It does make me wonder whether there's something wrong. With the silage that's on it, so let me empty this belt off best I can. Okay, so belt is empty. See, now I'm getting the unload control popping up, whereas before I wasn't. It still doesn't want to unload into that belt there. Why is that? I don't understand why that's not working. All these other belts are working absolutely fine. They're all transferring beautifully along here. But this one just doesn't want to work. What is going on with this belt here? Maybe this is too close. If I take that belt out of the equation a little bit. It still doesn't want to unload, look. Check the height positioning of the other bit. Maybe there's just too much silage going through the belt system at the moment. Maybe that's what the problem is. In which case, let me take that one off completely. Yes. There we go. There's too much silage going through at the moment. That's the big issue. So, in that case, I'll leave that belt like that for now. You can see, look, it's starting to judder through. There's just too much silage trying to feed into one small area. That's what's causing the issue. It has a maximum capacity, obviously, and we can only put 50,000 litres into the shredder at any one time as well. Currently we're up to 28,500, so we've still got some space left on that. But let's take a look over here. You can see we're starting to get those troughs appear. Nothing else is happening so far. We still need obviously a lot more of this to start moving. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start getting the rest of the silage to kind of move into position. Let me just close off this help menu. There we go. So obviously we've got those little bits there of chaff that I couldn't get rid of. That are kind of wedged into the system. But what I need to try and do now, as best I can, is to maybe create some space. For future silage. Got absolutely nothing moving at the back, really, simply because of all of that silage. I suppose it's kind of good in a way because it will help keep the system moving while everything's going at the front. You know, when that starts to run to a point, we can then get in and work the front while the back is continuing to unload. So it's not actually that much of a problem. It's not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. It's possibly actually going to be quite helpful. What I want to try and do is create a little ramp here if I can as well. It might be a little bit easier with a bucket initially. The problem with this chaff is it's preventing silage from getting into this area, but I can't actually get rid of this chaff until the silage is all gone. That's what's causing big problems. Just check everything still seems to be running. It is, very slowly, but it's running. And you can just see here we're starting to get a little bit of a trough building just here. Very slow because it's taking so slowly on this back piece. So we're going to let this run for quite some time. We're running in real time, which means once we hit 50,000 in the shredder, that's going to slow down as well. But this is a job that's going to take a very long time, and I want to protect the price as best I can, just in case something goes wrong. So while all of that is happening, you know, we've got to keep the price running as slow as we can, or changing as slow as we can for as long as we can. So you see it's dropped down to 268. I think it was 269 when we started, possibly. It might have been 268. So yeah, I'm going to skip ahead for a bit. We're going to continue to run this and we'll see where we are in, I don't know, maybe about half an hour or so. I've been looking for an excuse to use one of these little prophy cleaners on one of my Let's Plays for a very long time, and I think I've got the perfect opportunity right here. It's only cost me $6,000 from the store, so it's very cheap, and it's basically this particular version here, because there's two versions. One is kind of a small compact mower slash mulcher, and this one is basically a giant hoover. And I want to use this to try and get all those bits of chaff that we're now starting to get access to. You see the silage sale is still going through very nicely, and this will actually collect pretty much everything except, somewhat annoyingly, it can't be used to pick up hay, pick up grass, which is really frustrating because these would have been great for cleaning on the farm, you know, cleaning up the animal troughs, and it'd be great for the pigs. But yeah, we couldn't use it on the cows because the cows need, or the cows spit out grass, and we couldn't use it on the pigs. On the sheep, because the sheep also spit out grass, so it is kind of a bit of a waste. You can see we are starting to gain access to this, and I'm actually making possibly TMR here by mixing chaff and silage together. Not entirely sure exactly what it is I've got in here, or whether it works in the same way as a baler in that it just automatically assumes whatever it is I've got in there. Because this isn't chaff, and it isn't technically silage either. Seems to be a mixture of both. Maybe it'll spit them out as separate entities. Let's move away from the front of the bunkers, and we'll unload just here. Let's see what gets spit out at the back. Well, that's silage. Oh, and there's the chaff separating out, look, separately. Oh, that's excellent. You know, it's separated them out to separate items. So I can try and now clean out this area around here. Hopefully, a little bit of chaff there. You see, it's on the edge of the side, the edge of the silage there, which is, well, that little bit of silage stuck on the chaff, which is stopping me from actually gaining access to that completely. Can't seem to quite get rid of that just yet. That's going to be a little bit tricky. I might need to take a bit more out from here. As you can see, the belt system is working pretty well so far. If we just have a quick run along here, this whole area is starting to open up, and whereas I thought what would be a good idea would be to have belts running along the top, I've decided, because we're taking from this section first, before we even start really running the rear belts, as you can see, there's hardly anything been taken at all from over here. These two belts, in fact, have actually stopped because the belts are so slow right now. It's really kind of trickling through a little bit from these ones here. This one isn't really running at all that often either. And most of the silage is being taken from these belts and this belt here. So the plan kind of is, let's reposition this one slightly. The plan is to clear out this area here and then bring this belt and sit it down on the ground, and that way it's not going to get all wonky and uneven and at weird heights, and then it can start taking from the front section of this, and then when that's clear we can then stick a belt in the front section of that one, which will then take from that one and then draw into there, which will go to there, and so on and so forth. That's kind of the new plan. It's kind of evolving as we go, so we'll see how that all kind of shakes out, but I'm going to continue to obviously just let this run. A long way to go yet. We've almost hit, what, let's see, we started about 1/4 past, so we've been running for 40 minutes so far. I'm going to keep running and keep doing little bits of cleaning and see where we are again, probably around about 7:30. Okay, so it's now 7:50, and as you can see, we're still making some progress. I have brought the belt into this gap now, and if I start to force unload, you can see that the other belt at the front of those queue of side belts is actually picking up, but because the belts are running so slow, it's reaching a point where there ends up with too much on the ground for it to continue, and it will automatically end up switching itself off again in a moment. So what I'm going to do is basically just keep doing more of the same. I'm going to keep working the bunker at the front so we can start pulling through from the back, and there you go, see, it switched itself off, but you can see that the silage is being taken through the wall by the other belt. So obviously I can force unload again and keep that coming through, but it'll reach a point where again there ends up with too much in the pile to actually place anything more there, and so on and so forth. So what I need to do is basically I need to get rid of this belt so that I can build, keep working the main pile, and then eventually I'll be able to transition more of these belts into this first bunker and start pulling through from the other bunkers and keep working it that way. So a long way to go yet. Currently running at ×5 just to speed up how quickly this goes through the hopper, so I can actually kind of reset this counter back down to 0. Once it gets to that point, I'll then slow back down to ×1 again and continue working like that. So I've moved away the first couple of belts here because we've cleaned out this area. I want to continue to keep pushing on this area. This bottom belt still isn't really moving. There's still too much material going into this belt here and this belt here. We've got 4 separate inputs. Well, 5. Yeah, 4. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs going into this belt here, which is then feeding. That's the choke point. So you can see that these belts here are moving a lot slower than these ones here. They're getting the last remaining bit. So this one isn't moving still, but once it does, then we can then start to place belts on the interior and start to clear out these second sets of bunkers. I've built a big pile here as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this section untouched until the belts pick it up. But what I want to do is I want to clear out this section and this section and this section with a bucket. I want to get those kind of loaded. At the end there you can see I've got a prep station all kind of loaded up, and the theory behind this is so that I can actually keep this as a working function while I then work to sort out the middle sections of those bunkers there. So it's still a very, very long way to go, but you can see we're up to 300,000 now. I'm expecting us to maybe get, ooh, let's see, we were looking at 258. Let's see what the price is at the moment. The price has dropped, it's now 219. So it is dropping. We may have actually had a break somewhere which has caused the price to suddenly plummet. I hope that's not the case. But if we take an average of 200, so let's open up a calculator here. So we had 2 million litres in this bunker, and we've got 4 bunkers, so we've got 8 million litres. Now if we take 8 million litres and we divide that by 1,000, that gives us 8,000. We times that by 200, we're looking at 1.6 million as an average price for our silage. That's kind of a rough kind of estimate as to how much all of this silage is going to be worth in an actual dollar amount, but it's going to be more than 1.6, because you know we were selling a big chunk of this at nearly 260, and we do have a little over 8 million litres as well, and even right now with that dip we're still over that 200 threshold. So I think a 1.6 million estimate is a little conservative. We could be pushing perhaps maybe a little closer to 1.8, maybe even 2 million by the time we're done on this. We'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll be a very, very much richer and closer towards buying field 2 at the end of all of this silage sale off. And there you see that the counter has kind of reset back to 0. So let's slow time back down again, and that'll gradually start, you know, climbing and climbing until it hits the 50,000 litre limit again, at which point the belt will slow down. I'll speed things up again to get the belt to clear off a little bit, and we'll basically keep shuttling through time like that. So I've just done another reset of time to again speed things up, and the price is still continuing to fall. We're down to $203 and still falling. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect the belts. These two are already pushed forward so that they're not contributing into this mess. This one is actually tipping, but I'm going to reposition this one so that that one won't tip. That means this belt will stop feeding, and I'm going to do the same with this belt. Push it forward so it's not tipping, and the same with this one as well. Push that forward so that stops tipping. And the reason I'm doing this is we're using up essentially, you know, a lot of silage that is going to be worth, you know, an awful lot to us. And we're just tipping it at a price that is not good for us at all. So we'll let what's left in these belts clear off like that. And once this is gone, we'll basically I'm just gonna fast forward time continually until the price of silage starts to improve again. It's too much product to just throw away at a rubbish price. So let's see what it's sitting at now. After the crash, as we've sold, it's now down to 117, and it's going to continue to fall. So I'm going to speed time up to 270 times, or sorry, 120 times. I'm just going to let that price recover, and once it's done that, we'll then continue with selling the rest of this silage. It occurred to me as well that seeing as we're doing this and we're just speeding time up, I've actually slowed time down again. I figured we may as well fertilise our crops while we're waiting. Now, we haven't used this yet, our Amazona Pantera. So I've been looking forward to this. Let's fill her up. What I'm also going to need is a big liquid transport system to be able to refill this on the go. So let's go to, is it miscellaneous? Yes, there it is. And this is what I want, the multi-tank here. I want to buy one of those because we can fill this up with liquid fertilizer. I'm going to get this in white to match the rest of our setup. So another extra little purchase for us there. This is now full, and our fertilizer is going to cost us a lot of money. I am very much aware of that. So I'm expecting our cash to kind of plummet quite a bit. As a result of filling up with liquid fertilizer. Depends how quickly it gets used up by our sprayer here. There we go. Look at the working size of this thing. Nice and wide. We should get this field done in 3 passes, I reckon. And while that's doing that, let me find our truck. Where is the truck? There it is. Let's go collect our top-up trailer from the store, bring it back, get it filled up, because we're going to need this so that we can fill up on field 1. Because field 1's huge. Yeah, field 1 is 30 hectares, so it's going to take a lot of spraying. I reckon we'll probably get 2 passes before we run out of liquid fertilizer. Sort of an up and down motion on the field, maybe not even 2 passes. It's going to need refilling quite a lot. It only has a 4,500 litre capacity, so if we have 60,000 litres on hand that we can just drive up and top it up, we can keep that thing running, quite effectively, without having to make constant trips back to the nearest sort of placeable. I've been considering getting rid of this as well and maybe going for an 850 Legend instead. Something a little bit, potentially a little bit smaller. But for now we're going to stick with the 950. There is our trailer. It's a shame we can't get the writing in black. There we go. This truck is almost as long as the trailer. In fact, it might even be longer, looking at it. I think it is. I think it's slightly longer. That's insane. But we do have some place balls down at the bottom of field 1, if you remember, so we're going to kind of make our way down to those and fill it for there. Everything else, we'll do at the main farm. And there we go, there's our liquid storage tank, or a liquid purchase point. So we'll start filling up, and let's make our way back over here. How are we doing progress wise on the field? Making some pretty decent progress. We're a good chunk of the way down. Once this is done, we'll head over to field 5, we'll spray that, and then we'll make our way over there to field 1 and start spraying field 1. So we can't quite finish the field in 3 passes. It's a little bit too wide, so because I don't want to end up spending an absolute fortune wasting spray on a very narrow section, we're going to weed the remaining bit. So I've changed the wheels over to care wheels. We might not need them, to be fair. We might be able to get away with just standard wheels, but I don't want to run the risk of damaging the crop. So change them over just to be on the safe side. Hook it up to the weeder. There we go. And we're going to weed the remainder of field 3. Once it gets to the spray gets to the end, we'll move it straight over to field 5. Just hope I haven't taken too long making this wheel switch over. Let's check. It's still halfway down the field, so we've still got time. So we're going to weed this section instead. There we go. So we'll get that weeded in 2 passes. Where is the sprayer? There it is. Trundling along, as you can see. And then we'll move over to, say, field 5 when we get to the bottom. It's entirely possible that while I'm waiting for the price to rebound, I'll have to spray these a second time. In which case, I guess, we'll put the silage on hold until the harvesting is done. But I did really want to try and sell all of that silage in one go. But to drop below 200 is kind of unacceptable pricing, really, for us. We can't just throw good money away for the speed, for the sake of convenience of doing it all in one go. So that's why we stopped with the silage. We will start that up again, as I say, as soon as the price is good enough. But I don't want to waste all that potential income. And there we go, that is the end of the field. So let's fold this up. And we'll move ourselves over to field 5. And do the same with our sugar beets over here. I soon want to check as well the fertilisation states. I'm pretty sure that we should actually be in a really good place with our field fertilisation. I seem to remember we already have 2 layers down on at least a couple of the fields. So that's not the growth chart, it's that one. So yeah, there you can see we're applying that final little bit of fertilisation that we need. We should end up with stage 3 at the end of this with a second pass with the weeder. This is also stage 2. We'll probably end up having to weed a portion of this field as well. And then this is also stage 2, so it won't take long for us to fertilise our crops. Essentially, once these are done, we'll just have to wait for them to grow. We don't have crop withering on as well, so that means that we can go back to our silage before we need to do the harvest. Our crops aren't going to wither. Once they're harvestable, they'll stay harvestable. So we can focus on the silage and get all of that put through the shredder. And this field, I think, is narrow enough for us to be able to do the whole thing in 2 passes. Oh yeah, comfortably, look. We'll probably end up, wasting a little bit, but it's better than better than it would have been if we'd gone back up on the field 3, where we would have wasted quite a lot of spray with only maybe a third of the width being needed. This is definitely going to save us a bit of extra cash. Our worker made it halfway up the field and then decided to stop. So I've taken over manual control. I'll finish this field off myself. There we go. So not much longer to go on this, and then onto field 1. And there we go. That is field 5 done. Our weeder should be just about finished with field 3 as well. Let's check the mini-map, see if he's stopped moving. He has, excellent. So just field 1 left. That's the only field that now needs fertilizing. Okay, so the plan is on this field here to sort of run up and down and then refill when we get down to the bottom again, and then keep doing that and shuttling up and down and up and down and up and down. So we need to make sure that we're fully filled up before we go ahead and do that. Now I'm hoping I can do it while this is open. Let's just get it positioned about right. There we go. So let's run over to our truck over here, bring it over, and hopefully we can overload into our Pantera just there without the need for folding everything back up again. That'll help speed things up when it comes to each subsequent refill. See, our mother bins just sat there under the cover. We will obviously be breaking those out again when we do our harvest on this field. We're a little way off from that just yet. So, will it let me overload? Yes, it will. Excellent. It'll be just the right spot though. Oops. Well, it did briefly. Okay, let me try something else. Oh no, we're full. That was quick. That was really quick. I did not expect it to be that quick when it came to overloading. Nip underneath the spray. A little shower of pesticide there. Lovely. So now basically we'll let that run all the way up there, and then when we come back, when it comes back down the bottom, we'll fill it up again and keep doing that until it covers the rest of the field. So time to overload into our sprayer as soon as he turns around. As you can see, we are already in overload mode, so I just need to drive it behind him. And when he turns, I should overload straight into him. Oh, I wasn't quick enough. Okay, change of plan. Let's take a quick shower. Ugh, there we go. Right, it's fine. Dear oh dear. Fireworker, we just need to back up to this guy. There we go. Instant overload. So we get repositioned again, and off we go. Once again, we're left with a small part of the field that would be a big waste of time and money to spray, so we're going to weed that strip. It'll probably take 2 passes with a weeder, which will take quite a bit of time considering how big this field is, but it's certainly a better and cheaper alternative. So there you can see, this is all that remains. Again, it's a 2-width patch. So we'll get the worker up and running, and he will take care of the rest of this field for us. Meanwhile, this is the final pass that we'll make with our Amazona Pantera. So we used up an awful, or we put an awful lot of fertilizer into the tanker down there, and we barely touched any of it. I suppose we've kind of overcompensated on that one there, but you know, there's nothing to stop us from using that fertilizer at a later point. So we basically have, you know, a huge amount of storage, you know, portable storage of liquid fertilizer, around 50,000 litres. That'll take a little while to use up, but it will all get used up. Almost done with the sprayer. Weeder is still a little bit further down the field, running at the same speed actually as our sprayer here, so we're not likely to see it pop onto the screen anytime soon. And there we go. So I'm going to fold up. I'm going to refill this actually on the way back to our farm. We'll just take a bit more fertilizer out the storage tanker that we have here. We're going to have to remember to make sure we use that in the future. There we go. So, Amazona Pantera ready for a clean and then a put away while the weeder finishes off running up and down that field there. And as soon as that's done, we'll then accelerate time once again and get ready to do our silage. Price is pretty atrocious right now. It's last time I looked, it was almost under 100. I am actually curious as to exactly just how low that's going to be. I'm going to pull over and have a look. Let's see. 105 and falling still. So it's going to be a while before we can get that done. It may well be that our crops are actually ready to grow before that price finishes rebounding. I am planning on doing a harvest contract job on that field there as well. That'll bring in some extra cash. I do want us to get field 2 owned and workable as soon as possible. So we'll be doing a series of jobs on that field, you know, once the harvest is ready. So we'll be ploughing it and cultivating it and seeding it, and then looking to purchase it. And the money we make from those jobs, plus the money that we already have, and we have that $300,000 loan available to us as well, that'll all come in very, very handy, along with the rest of the money from our silage and potentially these crops as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that by completing the harvest and completing the silage run, combined with our loan and the money we get from working that field contract wise, that'll actually be enough to then buy the field once it's been, as I say, harvested, fertilized, ploughed, cultivated, fertilized and seeded, and maybe fertilized again. But before that harvest will be ready, I do intend on you know, the next harvest on that field will be ready, I do intend to have that owned and purchased. So keeping my fingers crossed for that one. Right, I'm actually coming to the wrong point here, but we can use this wash station just here. Let's give this a good clean, because it is absolutely filthy. Look at the state of it. You see all the grime at the top of the windows there, making it a little harder to see. So one thing I do think needs to be improved is the seating position in the vehicles. They do seem to sit just a little bit too high in quite a few of them, so hopefully that'll be resolved. In the next version of Farming Simulator. And there we go, back into our little storage bay just here. Right, how is our weeder getting on? He's on his final pass, making his way back up the field, so not too long left to go. And with that, you know, I'm going to end this episode here. I was hoping that we'd get all of our silage sold, but as I say, with that plummeting price, it just didn't make financial sense to continue working it, you know, for less and less return every single time, you know. So we'll get that sold, but we'll wait for the price to be a little bit healthier and a bit more, you know, reasonable. So thanks for watching. I'm Jim Bob, and we'll be back with another episode of Big Bud Farm, same time next week.